Christmas night, 1776. Under cover of darkness, George Washington prepares to risk the fate of the American Revolution on one dangerous roll of the dice. He will shuttle the weary remnants of his army across a frozen river to attack enemy winter garrisons in southern New Jersey. It's a high-risk plan, but in December 1776, Washington is a desperate man. The watchword for that operation is victory or death. And I think that sums up the stakes for Washington's winter gamble. The next 10 days were nothing short of a Christmas miracle.
And here at Little Wars TV, exactly 245 years later, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas.
We kept this video a secret to deliver our first ever holiday special. We're refighting the Battle of Trenton on location in Trenton, where Washington's army famously surprised a Hessian garrison on the morning of December 26th. We'll be refighting this battle in 10mm scale on a custom tabletop made just for the occasion.
Before we play the game, Tom and I visit the Old Barracks Museum here in Trenton to explore some of the tantalizing what-if possibilities of the scenario. Washington's surprise attack has taken on mythical status in America as an iconic, defining moment in the formation of our nation. Today we remember Washington's crossing of the Delaware as a matter of destiny, like it was preordained.
Which it most certainly was not. In this Christmas episode, we're going to explore all the variables at play in 1776. And this time, when we roll the dice at Trenton, what will happen when a few of those lucky breaks don't go Washington's way? Let's find out on Little Wars TV.
Season's greetings. Before we turn this holiday special back over to Tom and Zach, all of the guys here at the club just wanted to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon.
Your support has allowed us to put plans in motion that we wouldn't even thought possible a year ago.
Yeah, so to every single patron out there watching, we want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everything possible, because you guys are the best fans we have out there. And today's surprise episode is really for you. No commercials, no YouTube ads, none of that stuff, just a supersized episode to say thank you.
Welcome to the Old Barracks Museum in Trenton, New Jersey. This is one of the oldest buildings in town, where some of Raw's Hessian troops were quartered leading up to Washington's crossing. Today, this historic landmark is a fantastic museum focusing on the early years of the American Revolution.
I'm Asher Lurie, Chief of Historical Interpretation here at the Old Barracks Museum. And put very simply, the great thing about the barracks, in a 20-year period from its construction in 1758 to the period of the American Revolution in the late 1770s, the barracks represents New Jersey at its most committed to being part of the British world, and then at its most committed to breaking away from that world. All in the same place. When we talk about 1776, we usually think about the Declaration of Independence, this great moment in American history. What a great year, right? But the honest truth is, it's a terrible year for the Continental Army. It is a year that sees two American armies nearly destroyed. The Northern Department's army and its invasion of Canada had gotten to the walls of Quebec. Then you have General Washington's army of roughly 25,000 men in midsummer 1776 that will fight a series of battles between August and November in and around New York City, Washington losing the vast majority of those battles. And by the time you get to December, the army has shrunken from 25,000 men down to about 5,000 men. The big other issue for Washington is that regiments at the beginning of the war, when they're formed, well, they're formed the way colonial regiments had always been formed, for roughly a single-year term of service. So put yourself in the shoes of those soldiers. If you're a soldier whose enlistment might end in December, you've seen soldiers whose enlistments had ended in October, November, they've gone home. Think about what you've witnessed. You've witnessed the disaster that was the Battle of Brooklyn, Kips Bay, White Plains. These are not inspiring moments. Now in a few weeks, come December 31st, January 1st, you can go home. Now General Washington, he wasn't a foolish man. He needs a way to keep the army together. And the best way to keep the army together, that is with a victory. But this can't be any ordinary victory. This has to be a victory where he destroys an enemy force of soldiers, where he removes an enemy playing piece from the game board. And that's why he's going to attempt to attack Trenton. He's got to make that Hail Mary pass. Now, battles in the winter are not common. It is very hard to move an army. So when we talk about the Battle of Trenton, we're talking about one of the most mythologized battles in American history. There are a lot of myths associated with this battle. One of the most famous myths associated with the Battle of Trenton, of course, is that the Hessian soldiers are drunk. But there's virtually no evidence of this. This is a frontline post. We know from numerous Hessian depositions and some American accounts that these soldiers are sober. We know that the Hessian soldiers, some of these regiments, the duty regiment, the regiment that is, or the alarm regiment, will be sent out to go out and deal with anything in case any of the pickets are attacked. These soldiers are sleeping on their arms. Their muskets are being kept very close by. They're staying in their kits if need be. That is not the behavior of people celebrating Christmas. We even have an account from an American soldier, Greenwood, who mentions the sobriety of the Hessian soldiers when they are marching them out of the town. That's pretty definitive if a soldier in the army is making note of that. So Colonel Roll was aware something was going on across the river. He had intelligence that soldiers were packing rations for a few days, which usually indicates movement of soldiers. The pickets around town had been attacked over numerous days leading up to the time of the battle. Even in the early hours of the 26th, some of the pickets around town are attacked by some Virginians. It's actually something that's going to upset Washington in his march towards the town. I believe this was General Stevens who does this, and Washington is very unhappy because he thinks he's given up the entire game. Now, what plays out throughout every battle is that the weather plays out in Washington's favor. You have an ice storm that comes through on the 26th. For Washington, once he gets across the river, he's got a choice to continue on or go back. He's already across the river. He's got to go on. He's only across the river with 2,500 men or so. The other two crossings he'd hoped to make, south of Trenton and down between Bristol and Burlington, aren't successful. He decides to make a go of it anyway. For the Hessians, well, they're going to assume no one's going to move in this type of weather. Plus, their pickets have been attacked before. So the blizzard actually helps Washington out. So one of the things I do think is fairly true is Roll's responsibility to what happens here with the battle. Roll actually asks for this position. This is the position of honor. It is the closest garrison of British or Hessian soldiers to Washington's army. Washington is on the other side of the river. His army spread out from what is now Morrisville up to the area near New Hope and present-day Washington's Crossing to the south, but spread out and even down to the area of Bristol. He asks for the position of honor. Now, the brigade itself is in rough shape. Like I said, they had fought in a few different battles in the New York campaign. By the time of the battle on December 26th, there are only roughly 10 commissioned officers for a regiment of over 300 men. That is far from what you want usually to manage your men out on the field. That's going to play a role in how the Royal Regiment performs on December 26th versus the Losborg and Kniphausen Regiment, who all have a tough time that day, admittedly, but the Royal Regiment is in the worst shape of the three. It had been recommended to Colonel Roll, the commander of this brigade, that he should build earthworks, build redoubts. The other issue, of course, is there are no alarm posts that are set for these soldiers where they should form up. So when they are attacked on December 26th, these regiments form up in front of the headquarters of their commanding officers out on the streets of town. The Royal Regiment, because it has only so few commissioned officers, has the hardest time getting off the streets and is beaten up as it's moving through the town to reach where the Losborg Regiment was that had quickly gotten out of town, facing in the direction of Princeton. And initially, their hope was to break out in the direction of Princeton, but that order was countermanded by Roll once he rides out to the Orchard. And they are ordered to face towards the town in the hope of pushing the American soldiers out of the town itself.
This is a great spot for us to refight the war game of Trenton. Exactly 245 years on location to the date.
That's right. You know, Zach, we call it the Battle of Trenton, but it wasn't much of a battle. It was really just a large skirmish. And that is the biggest challenge in setting up a war game of Trenton. It's not much of a contest. It was all over in less than an hour. Not even 25 were killed in the whole affair. Over half the Hessian garrison surrendered, while the rest escaped. The Battle of Trenton was a total romp for Washington, which doesn't really sound like it'd make much of a war game.
I mean, historically, it's actually pretty uninteresting. But that's what I love about historical wargaming. You can change the parameters to add a fog of war, some randomness, or allow for alternative possibilities, and that's exactly what we're going to do today here at Trenton.
By now, the history of Washington's Crossing is well known.
Almost every variable in this operation goes in Washington's favor. We've created a randomized table to reflect different possibilities. What if some of the militia had made it across as planned to bolster Washington's army?
That would be a nice bonus. But what if the crossing had gone less smoothly? What if Henry Knox hadn't been able to successfully shuttle 16 pieces of artillery across the river? It's amazing that he managed to do so historically.
Or what if the snow and sleet continued through the night and delayed some of Washington's troops in the march to Trenton? I think that they were lucky to arrive at daybreak when they did.
In our game, there's no guarantee that the Continental Army will have all the forces they had available historically.
I think some of the most exciting what-ifs are on the Hessian side.
What if Rahl had listened to his senior officers and prepared defenses on the outskirts of town?
Rahl also failed to send enough pickets on Christmas night to watch rebel activity, not because the Hessians were drinking, but rather due to the bad weather. What if the weather had been different? And what if Rahl dispatched enough pickets to warn him of Washington's advance?
Here's a better one. What if Rahl's superiors had listened to his requests for reinforcements? He made numerous requests that December. And those men were nearby. A British garrison at Princeton and a Hessian garrison at Bordentown might have lent support to Rahl. Tory spies in Pennsylvania had warned the British that Washington was preparing to make a winter crossing and could have acted on that intelligence. So what do you say, Zach? Should we go explore some of these what-ifs at Trenton?
Oh, I can't wait.
Hey, I'm Keith. I'm playing George Washington, so that's going to be interesting. I was presented with two choices. I could go for Trenton right away and as fast as possible, no delay, or I could delay for an hour or two and allow more of the army to catch up, if it catches up. I went for haste because it's who I am. I like to go for the throat. It's what I do. It'll probably be disaster, but we'll see what happens.
So I'm playing Colonel Johann Rahl, leader of the Hessians here in Trenton. Now, despite my many attempts to get the Crown to send me more troops, they haven't. And my regimental officers were saying you should build fortifications. Well, by God, we're Germans. And these colonials can sneak up on us. So anyway, I did not choose the build fortifications option. I chose to keep my men sober, send out more pickets and more watchfires, more patrols.
As you've just heard, I gave both Keith and Zach a pre-battle strategic decision based on the historical circumstances leading up to Trenton. Their decisions are about to have major ramifications in today's wargame. Each side in our scenario has their own random events table, representing the famous variables at play on December 26th. They roll in secret. Zach rolls a 3 and a 5 on the Hessian table, and he is delighted to learn that his pickets have detected the rebel advance that night, allowing all of the Hessian regiments to deploy at dawn. This is a huge blow to the Americans, as it means there will be no element of surprise. Zach's second roll on the table is equally game-changing. This random event assumes that von Donop has in fact dispatched a battalion from Bordentown to arrive in Trenton sometime later in the morning. As the referee for the game, I paused to ask Asher Lurie, the chief historian for the Old Barracks Museum, about the good luck our Hessian player enjoyed and what this could mean for the battle ahead.
Being able to wrest a flank of the army, this brigade, on the Delaware on one side, using Petty's Run, and being able to have that and deploy your men, forcing the American troops, if they're going to attack you, to cross that stream, that's big. Let alone letting the Hessians have different places to deploy or even leave the town. But
right.
You really caught Washington flat-footed, which could have happened in the early hours of the 26th of December.
Right. The Americans must also roll for random events, and let's just say that Keith is not enjoying Washington's historical good fortune so far. Your Excellency, you chose to press forward with the attack. Because of course.
Right.
I think it was a great decision. I think it gives you the best chance of swarming them in the town.
Okay.
But that had some consequences. You had to roll on the random table, and at a slight penalty, because you did choose to push ahead.
Right. Yes, it was a -1 of the roll.
That's right. So what happened on the first roll, you find out, you've been informed that Henry Knox has not made it across the river.
Henry.
You're going to be short of artillery here.
Okay.
You still will have support from the Pennsylvania shore.
Okay.
So remember that.
Okay.
The other one, you have found out that because of the ice below the Trenton Falls that formed up, Glover's brigade is not going to be able to secure the southern flank of Trenton.
Great.
So the Assunpink Bridge is open, and you must secure that.
Okay.
Keith now faces a much tougher set of circumstances than Washington did in 1776. Historian Asher Lurie immediately zeroes in on Henry Knox's missing artillery as a point of concern.
Not having the guns is huge. Washington being able to place those guns at the top of King and Queen Street, present-day Warren and Broad, allowed him to sweep the streets with case shot, which helped clear the streets and forcing the Hessians out into the fields and orchards on the eastern side of town. But even in the scenario that you have here, having any form of cannon would have been helpful to maybe stop the Hessians from taking positions along Petty's Run.
But in our scenario today, the Hessians will be able to take up defensive positions behind the creek north of town. With Rawls' men fully alerted to the American attack, Zach deploys his regiments in a strong line, bristling with muskets and bayonets, gleaming in the December sun. All of the miniatures you see here are 10mm scale Pendragon models. You saw these same figures in our Brandywine episode, but now we have winter and summer armies. We love the figures, and if you like the look of these 10mm armies, in the coming weeks we'll have a painting tutorial to show you how we whip together large forces in short order. As we start our first turn in today's game, Keith's decision to press the attack without waiting for his stragglers to reform means that he arrives earlier in the morning, extending our turn limit by 2 additional turns. But the trade-off is that not all of Washington's troops are on the field yet. The advance will be piecemeal, and Keith must now find a way to coordinate an attack against a prepared enemy position. But Keith has a plan. Washington and Greene will lead an advance directly at the Hessians, pinning them in place, while Sullivan's troops arrive from the east and unhinge the Hessian flank along the Delaware River. Meanwhile, he will send a single regiment west to secure the road to Princeton. In the opening turn of the game, Zach is content to stand firm, making only a modest counter-move by ordering his Jaegers forward to skirmish and riding out with a small troop of 50 British dragoons to harass the rebel advance on Princeton.
Look at there we go. 3 6s.
In turns 2 and 3, the Americans press forward with light skirmishing, shaking out their march columns into lines of battle. It's a cautious start for both sides, which is understandable. Keith is waiting for Sullivan's reinforcements to appear on his right flank, and Zach is content to remain in his defensive position. Well, until turn 4, that is. With the American attack still slow to develop, Zach decides the moment is right to seize the initiative, advancing the right end of his line across the creek and trading volleys with the American flank. The Americans are driven back in a sharp exchange of musketry.
One! Yes! Yes!
Good! Ooh, doggies. Holy all right.
Keith has passed his morale test. This is critical because in the rules we're playing today, live free or die, a retreating regiment can trigger a panic in nearby units who see them run. In some cases, this can lead to cascading routes, but Keith has managed to avoid an early disaster on his flank. He has no choice but to press forward and mount an attack on the Hessian position. But our General Washington makes it pretty clear how he feels about his chances this morning.
March to the sound of disaster, boys.
Asher Lurie stops by throughout our game to check in on the progress and see how our scenario might be diverging from history. We all loved having a historian on hand to offer commentary on the wargame as it developed.
He basically rolled that he was allowed to deploy, so now I'm not facing surprised Hessians, I'm facing angry, ready Hessians.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it.
I can't wait to hear the story of the Battle of Rollsburg.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Zach hasn't gotten a town renamed in his honor quite yet. He does receive a single battalion of grenadiers from Fondant at Bordentown as a result of some good luck on the random events table. But the Americans are receiving their own assistance. Keith's long-awaited reinforcements from General Sullivan arrive on the field, threatening the Hessian flank. These troops will take a couple of turns to bring into line, and Keith decides to test the Hessian defenses by sending forward 2 of Greene's regiments.
2, baby. 2. 2.
Greg, check this out.
I knew I was going to lose this. But I had to do it.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm going to tell me.
I have 8 successes.
Oh, no.
Holy sh! I had 2. Ow!
Oh, at least you're not annihilated utterly.
Oh, good. Okay. So now I'm basically trying to break into a very fortified Trenton with no surprise whatsoever. All my troops are on the field, and things are not looking good. At this point, I don't even know how I'm going to do it. I have several units in place to assault, but the numbers are not in my favor, and I'm trying to fight across a creek. At this point, I have captured the Princeton Road, which is good. I need that as one of my objectives. But it's not being held by much. 1 regiment. Other than that, I don't really know how I'm going to get out of this. Other than try to. This turn, I think if I can coordinate several assaults at the same time, I might be able to break in somewhere. But it doesn't look good. So we'll see.
Okay, so we're halfway through the battle, and things are going pretty well. The rebels came, they charged against my line, which, I was alert, so I fought up on the creek. They charged against it, and I've driven them off with withering fire both times. Von Donop sent reinforcements. I have a massive grenadier unit marching across the bridge into Trenton. I don't even know where I'm going to put it in my battle line. So things are going pretty well. Oh, and I got some Jaegers in the woods just to harass their approaching columns. And there's nothing I can do to stop those Pennsylvania boys from making it to Princeton, I think. But I got some dragoons just to, give them something to think about.
Zach may be dreaming of seizing back the initiative in this battle, but on turn 6, it's Keith who lands the first punch. He's mounting his biggest attack of the morning, coordinating multiple regiments across Petty's Run from Green's and Sullivan's divisions. General Washington personally leads one of the attacks, which in Live Free or Die is quite significant. You can see Washington is rated as a 3-star leader, which allows Keith to add 3 dice into the combat if his regiment can close the charge. Charging regiments roll for random movement, so you're never sure if a charge will go through.
Second charge?
Yeah, please make this one.
All right, here it is.
They're trying to charge, but they're running up short.
Oh my god.
5, 4,
I
5.
think you got it.
5 will get me. 5 will get me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this might put us back in the normal timeline.
The Americans roll well enough to close the charge, resulting in a round of close combat with Washington leading the way. But if December 26, 1776 was Washington's day, today, 245 years later, it's Johann Rahl's day to shine. All the dice are coming up in Zach's favor with a massive roll.
Oh, that's a lot of...
In Live Free or Die, every result of 5 or 6 succeeds, so he's done quite well indeed. The only question now is whether Washington himself could be killed or wounded. Surely that would spell true disaster for the American cause.
Washington leading from the front. Come on.
Ooh, 3. Okay, I'm good.
Gets his hat shot off.
Washington survives his brush with danger, but the American attack is beaten back. Worse yet, on the following turn, Zach senses the moment is right to make a spoiling attack.
Okay, I have some charges. I do have charges.
Where are your oh, yeah, right.
Oh, yes. Over here, where the battle's going even better. So, I'm going to charge up there. I'm aiming for these skirmishers. So, 3 inches.
I think I love you. You're winning the day.
Boss is close.
This is very good.
9.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, they're charging up there.
Washington is kaputt.
Clearly, as you can see in the video, we had an absolute blast filming the Trenton game on location at the Old Barracks Museum. While the museum staff and volunteers were checking out the game, we were busy checking out their firearms and equipment, trading stories from the battle, and all having a great morning together. We'll talk a little more at the end of the video about the museum and what you can see here. But suffice it to say, the people who work here are fantastic, engaging, and very knowledgeable. It's turn 8 in our battle, and despite Keith's best efforts, his repeated attacks have been repulsed, and now he's facing pressure from Hessian counterattacks along the line. Of these counterattacks, perhaps the most intriguing is the one in an otherwise quiet sector of the battlefield along the Princeton Road. Flush with success and brimming with confidence, Zach decides to take his 50 dragoons and launch a mounted cavalry charge against the American regiment guarding the road to Princeton. It's just the kind of suicidal move Keith would never expect, and the British dragoons smash into the flank of the unsuspecting American militia.
Yes. I'm class 2. You're 3, I believe, right?
That's right.
So 3 for that, 3 for cav charge.
That's it.
Okay.
Oh.
4 hits.
Man. Caught in the flank by cavalry, the Americans are soundly routed, scattering into the woods.
Woo! Okay.
These boys scattered.
Yeah, they did. They just. You hear hoops?
It's the British! Still in disbelief over how badly this battle is going for him, Keith must now decide whether to retreat and chalk this up as a resounding defeat, or make one final attempt to steal a victory. Now more than ever, the Americans need a Christmas miracle. The only man in a position to deliver it is General John Sullivan, still lurking on the Hessian flank and receiving artillery support from across the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware River. Keith makes his last bid for Trenton on turn 9, ordering Sullivan ahead for one final roll of the dice. The ragged, weary Americans surge forward, driving the Hessians back from the creek, crossing the bridge into the town. I should note that the U-shaped building you see here in the video is actually none other than the Old Barracks, the very same building where we're playing today's game. How fitting that the final climax of today's scenario is set to unfold right here. The 2nd Maryland Regiment leads the way, turning the Hessian left flank and pushing through the streets of downtown Trenton. Historically, this is where Knox's artillery swept the streets, flushing the enemy into the open fields. But remember, in our scenario, Knox's guns never arrive. And on the Hessian side, a battalion of grenadiers from Fontainebleau did arrive earlier in the morning. Zach has held these troops in reserve and now orders them to form up for a counterattack in the streets of Trenton. Watching the battle reach this climax, historian Asher Lurie can't help but weigh in on the magnitude of the moment.
Having one of the grenadier battalions of von Linsing show up, these are elite soldiers, so not just getting reinforcements, but getting elite reinforcements coming up from Bordentown is decisive, because those numbers, Linsing's probably 400, 500 men, so at that point, you're getting closer to parity with the size of Washington's force that is across the river. And you're in favorable defensive positions. That's big.
Engaging the von Linsing Grenadiers is big, but so is the moment that follows. The hero of the hour, General Sullivan, is leading from the front when his men come under fire from the Hessian counterattack.
Okay, come on. Come on. 1! Yeah!
Now you roll on the table.
You're out of here. Smack! Crap. So what's his fate?
Another one he's outright killed.
All right. Oh, cool. 1! He took it between the eyes. Whap!
And he'll get replaced.
We'll name a
the end
street
of
after
next
him or
turn.
something.
When Sullivan is killed, the American breakthrough into Trenton collapses into a panicked rout, with cascading morale checks cracking the rebel flank. It's over, and Keith knows it. He orders a hasty withdrawal from the field. Washington must now find a way to retreat back across the Delaware to Pennsylvania. Today's wargame is a powerful reminder of the role that luck played in Washington's winter offensive in December 1776, and how just a few variables could have thrown his campaign aims into disarray.
This is catastrophic. If you're Washington, this is basically the war. If you're one of those soldiers whose enlistments are coming to an end at the close of the month, you're not going to be staying. You're going home. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the revolution's coming to an end, but it doesn't look good.
It's probably the end of Washington's career as general.
Good chance.
We certainly know that Horatio Gates was meeting with Congress this very day, if not the day before, proposing plans to withdraw behind the Susquehanna. So I think there was a real, to me, I've always thought the reason Washington was so bold in this battle is really for him, it was all or nothing. All right, Asher, I wanted to thank you for having Little Wars here today to host the Battle of Trenton. It was fabulous, great weather. We were outside in the courtyard. It's a wonderful museum you have here. What can you tell us? What should people know about coming to visit and making the most of their trip?
Well, anyone wants to come and visit us, we are taking reservations in advance. We'd ask you to go to www.barracks.org to make a visit here. Now, when you come here, of course, you'll get a history of the building. You'll see our soldiers, which are on the other side of the camera right now. Talk to some of our tradespeople and get some really great dynamic history going back to the 7 Years' War and the French and Indian War through the period of the American Revolution, which the Barracks was a witness to, and really bridging those two worlds, going from British America to the birth of the United States, and all of that tale being told right here.
It's a great place to visit.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. Our staff have had a wonderful time. I've had a wonderful time. And flipping the Battle of Trenton on its head is something new and different.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a great way to do it, and your staff certainly got engaged. They lent quite a bit
Yes.
of comedy to it. In addition to thanking the staff of the Old Barracks Museum, we want to give one last thank you to our supporters on Patreon. The names of our showrunners are scrolling on the screen now, but we appreciate every single one of you for sticking with us. When we tried to think of what we could do to convey our gratitude for your support, we felt a holiday surprise episode would be the perfect gift to end 2021. But what about 2022, you ask?
Merry Christmas, Little Wars TV fans. We really hope that you guys enjoyed our AWI Trenton episode. Now, if you are a member of our Patreon page, then you can tune in there for an exclusive update of what we have coming in the new year, 2022. And as you can see behind me, we're heading across the pond. Merry Christmas.